Hey everyone, welcome to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
Jaime Fuego here.
And we're here to deliver our top 13 favorite horror franchises. Now, the caveat to this is that I say favorite for a reason, because that doesn't necessarily mean we think these are the best horror franchises. These are just the ones that we like the most. Right, Fuego?
Exactly right, yeah. So don't think, oh my god, that series is terrible. Once again, everything is subjective, but nonetheless, yeah, you could probably argue, especially with some of my choices, just the level of quality, but nonetheless, they're still near and dear to my heart, and that's what this is all about, you know?
Absolutely. So, let's go ahead and get into this with our number 13.
Yeah.
So, I am going to go ahead
No honorable mentions?
God damn it. No, 13's enough. You're getting 3. But are part of your list now. Shut up.
Woo!
All right, so number 13, I am going to say the Wishmaster series. Now, there are, I think, 4 of these at this point.
I've only seen the first 2, maybe 3. I mean, I was thinking the original one, but yeah.
Now, some of these are some that I haven't seen in a bit, but I'm going based on memory and feeling. I always loved the Wishmaster movies. I am a big fan of seeing wishes turn bad. I always loved the Monkey's Paw episode of The Simpsons and the old story itself, and anything like that I really get into. So when I was trying to think of, you know, the ones that make my list, this one made the cut because I started with a list of like my 20 favorite and I whittled it down. And this one made the cut because I like the creativity involved in the Wishmaster series.
As far as the kills go?
The kills and how they undo it all by the end. Because there's always an interesting, fun way that they undo sort of what's been done in the movie. And I kind of like that. That sort of writing is always fun for me, especially from the first one.
So my number 13 is going to be none other than one of the most underrated guys in horror in my estimation, Frank Henenlotter, and his Basket Case series. Now, Basket Case was iconic enough to even show up in a cameo where Belial and his brother are sitting on the subway in Brain Damage, which is really dope. And so the first one is decent enough, but it's the second one, in my opinion, that really just revved up this franchise of the strange little half-brother going around in this basket, this mutated little Belial creature, whatever guy. And then the third one is just straight up bonkers, where you have this whole family of other creatures and they're singing, look on the bright side of life, you know, and then in this school bus, and it just gets so weird. And so it's not a very horror-centric series. It's definitely of the grossly body horror, comedic silliness, and I still contend that, you know, Brain Damage is my favorite of Henenlotter's films, even over Frankenhooker, even over Basket Case 2, but the sex scene at the end of Basket Case 2 alone puts this eternally in my top 13 horror franchises, because it's so gross, it's so funny, and I love it. It's just so weird.
Okay. And my number 12 is going to be the Cube series. There is Cube 2, and Cube 0. And I guess Cube 2 might have been Cube Squared, but this is a series that it definitely does predate the Saw series.
Definitely.
But this is a kind of torture porny. Basically, a group of people wake up inside this cube room, and they don't know why they're there, but they've all been placed there, and all they can do is figure out how to get into the next room, which is another cube, but they very quickly find out that the rooms are booby-trapped, and sacrifices have to be made, strategies have to be struck in order to get all the way through it. And so they do the same in the second one. They try and raise the scale, and then they actually try and raise the scale even a little bit more for the third one, which was Cube 0, which ended up being the prequel. But I like the production design of all of them. I like the ideas behind all of them. The characters, I'm sure, aren't super strong in all of them, but again, it's been a while since I've watched this series, but I've always liked them. I've watched them more than once, and they are definitely a precursor to Saw. Saw has done a lot of the same stuff. So, yeah, Cube, definitely.
There you go. So for my number 12, I'm actually pulling an audible and pushing one franchise out of this. I'm actually putting in From Dusk Till Dawn.
Okay.
And because of the fact that while I was not a big fan of Texas Blood Money, which was the second one that had Robert Patrick in it, and it was more so focusing on the type of stuff we saw in the first half of From Dusk Till Dawn with, you know, the robbery and, you know, the whole crime aspect and whatnot. But the third one, where you went back to like the Wild West type of vibe and stuff, and there were maybe a few too many callbacks and almost seen recreations in a different time period from the first film. But nonetheless, I mean, the first From Dusk Till Dawn is my favorite vampire movie of all time, as close as Near Dark and Fright Night, and a few others come. Let the Right One In. There's some fantastic vampire movies, 30 Days of Night, but From Dusk Till Dawn is the creme de la creme for me, or the blood de la blood, or whatever. And yeah, I mean, Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez coming together, and the fact that they did spearhead in the production process, and I think they weren't just EPs. They did kind of, lead the process, or at least Robert Rodriguez did. I think, Quentin was just there for the first one and then just kind of stepped away. But I love the vibe of a Western and a vampire series coming together. I've still never watched the El Rey series, which is the one thing where I can't...
First season wasn't good because it was just really bloated first movie. But...
Yeah. But, I mean, between the first and the third in the franchise, and with how much I adore the first, how could I not have, as much as I love Fangers, have something vampire-wise in this countdown? So there you go.
All right, so my next one is number 11. And this one, I'm going to give it to Adam Green's Hatchet series.
Oh, I know how much you love it.
I do. This one was a slasher series that was a tremendous throwback to the 80s when there was not much of that going on in the 2000s. Like, it was a lot of The Ring and The Grudge and a lot of those kinds of horror movies at the time. And so Adam Green was like, no, screw that. Let's get back to the slasher genre. And so he created Victor Crowley, who is one of the most vicious slashers that we've ever seen put to screen, just because of how crazy, just because of how crazy that his kills get.
Yeah.
And I love that as a gore hound. I've always loved the gore in horror movies, and Adam Green doesn't shy away from it. He revels in it. So does Victor Crowley. So, I mean, that's no-brainer for me. The fourth movie, not great at all.
And that's
the second movie is even a little bit weak. But I love 1, I love 3. Victor Crowley was kind of rough, though. That is the night we met him, but he's still an awesome dude. And so I still support him, and I'll go see any more Victor Crowley that we get.
Yeah, the kills are super giftable in the Hatchet series. I need to properly explore 2 and 3 because I haven't seen those, but I have seen 1 and 4. If we're going to jump into my number 11, this one goes to 11. Now, the third entry in this, the only reason I'm including it is because of the fact that, according to Tom Savini and Mr. Ramiro, this is the official third Creepshow, and that is the Creepshow series. So Creepshow 1 and 2, and then Tales from the Dark Side, which, basically sprouted off of Creepshow. There would have been no Tales from the Dark Side television series if not for the Creepshow film that Ramiro did, because he also developed the TV series. 1 is very strong, and it has some terrific segments in it, most notably the one where Leslie Nielsen buries Ted Danson and his cheating lover in the sand, and I can hold my breath for a really long time. The crate is fantastic. The only one that I'm really not too big on is the whole one where the roaches overrun his spot, but I just love anthology horror, and my favorite entry in all of these, although a close second, is the Tales from the Dark Side, where the guy sees a gargoyle killing somebody, and then the gargoyle is like, I will spare your life if you don't ever tell anybody about this. And lo and behold, he starts drawing it. It turns into something. But the best segment ever in Creepshow was filmed right here in Arizona, up north near Prescott, and it's The Raft, and it's based on a King short story. So while King did write a few exclusively for screen, this one was an adaptation from prior source material, and there's boobs, there's nasty gore, there's a terrific ending. Creepshow, yes, that's my number 11. I love it. Yeah.
So my number 10 is going to be the Hellraiser series. Now, I'm putting this one here because I do love Pinhead and company, but I can't escape the fact that so many of the entries in this series are garbage. Anything beyond 4, I think, is not really worth your time, period.
4 was in
End of
space,
sight. Yeah. I actually even like 4 a lot. I like 4 almost equally with 3. Because we get some backstory of Le Marchand, and we get the space stuff, which I'm a sucker for. We get the horrible dog in the end, and then we get Pinhead saying one of the best lines he ever says at the very end before he explodes. He goes, "Oh man!" I was like, "Oh yeah, that's dope." So the Hellraiser series, just for the gruesomeness, the gore, the unabashed terror that it would instill in people's minds and hearts, I gotta go Hellraiser for my number 10.
Okay, awesome. So for my number 10, I'm actually going with none other than, I'm going to pull another audible. As much as I love Terminator, it's not science fiction, so I'm going to throw in...
See, you got to go with Terminator now, because that's a way to squeeze in an honorable mention. You can't do that.
I was trying
you
to
got to do
sneaky.
Terminator.
Okay,
no.
Terminator. Jenny Smith, I enjoyed some instances
That's
of
Terminator
the,
Genesis he's
of the
referring
Sega
to.
Genesis Terminator. And even Salvation, okay enough. I mean, the great cast with Yelchin and with Christian Bale and Sam Worthington and whatnot. But I am an apologist of the third film. I actually really like Rise of the Machines. I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as a lot of people claim it to be. And this is a series, along with two others that are on here, being Predator and Alien, that we'll get to later for me. Those three properties, with their Dark Horse just universe building and all the crossovers that they did with each other as well, were just so awesome to me. And then also Terminator with the RoboCop crossovers too. Those were really dope. So just anything with regards to this property, even if some of the later film entries weren't as good. I hear Sarah Connor Chronicles is very good.
Sarah Connor
Chronicles is very
Sarah
good.
Connor Chronicles was pretty fun. I really liked I really like the Summer Glau. I like her a lot. She plays the female Terminator. And Lena Headey, who was Cersei from Game of Thrones, was Sarah Connor.
She's in it? Wow.
Oh, you didn't realize? She plays Sarah Connor. Lena Headey, Cersei from Game of Thrones, played Sarah Connor. Many people might not know that. Yeah,
I didn't know that
Lena
either.
Headey was literally Sarah Connor for those 2 seasons.
That's interesting. I think I have to explore that before the November release of the new film Dark.
Sarah Connor Chronicles was interesting. It made me cry one episode. I could tell you exactly which one did it. There is something that happens, and I was like, Terminator gonna make me cry.
For the second time. And obviously the first 2 films go without saying as being 2 of the best just bridgings of action, horror, and science fiction
100%.
ever made.
Same with Alien and Aliens. I put them on the same level.
Yeah, unparalleled.
All right, so that leads to both of our number 9s. This is the same one.
Which is funny. So double down.
Double down. So yeah, this one is one of the things that made me it was Jaws and this that made me fall in love with creature movies. And I can mention Jaws because I'm not cheating because it's on my list. So this one was Tremors. And this was land Jaws, essentially. I mean, really? when you break it down, except you can't swim away. Because if you try and run away from land Jaws is going to know exactly where you are, and he's going to get you.
It's almost like when you would play Lava as a kid.
Tremors going to give it to you. They're going to give it to you.
Tremors going to give it to you. Remember when you would play Lava as a kid, though, and you couldn't jump on the carpet, and you had to jump from almost
the floor is lava,
Yeah, exactly.
It's a thing.
And so,
there's YouTube videos.
Yeah, and Tremors is basically you would have to jump on the rocks or else you're screwed.
Yeah, the dirt is lava.
Yeah, that's what they do at one particular point in the original movie as well. And I like the sequels. I have a soft spot for 2 and when they went back to the Wild West.
I think 3 is the weakest of the entire franchise.
No, 4 was when they went to the Wild West.
4 was the Wild West,
TV
the prequel.
Series is the weakest.
I think 6 is the weakest. The ice one that came out last year.
Especially
that one
with
was
garbage.
Dude,
we loved 5 so much. It was
5 was great. I was like, yes.
And good dynamic between Jaime
No, the
Kennedy
best return to form was the trailer that we got for the series we're never going to get with Kevin Bacon.
Directed by the guy who did Splice and Cube. And yet, unless it leaks online at some particular time, we will never see it.
We need to ask our friend in the industry that has access to pilots to see if he's got that one.
Because he told us he could get us a pilot for something else.
Yeah, we need to ask him, because if so... So, all right. So that's Tremors. We love Tremors.
Tremors is great, man. And even number 2, where they sprout legs and then like...
I liked 2. No, I liked 2 because Fred Ward came back.
He did.
Fred Ward came back and... October 74, like the Playmate thing.
He was rumored to be returning in the one with Kevin Bacon for the TV series because Burt Gummer has been.
Burt Gummer's been carrying the series since, but all right,
he has.
We got to move on. So my number 8 is going to be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is my number 8 because I just have a soft spot. We're going to start to get into new goodness and nostalgia for me, pretty much. So I'll be honest with you guys there. So number 8, I'm going to say, just because the Texas Chainsaw Massacre does have so many quality entries, in my opinion, I'm easy when it comes to horror movies a lot of times. I'll be totally honest. If I'm entertained, I'm going to like it. So I don't have the tremendous problems with some of the entries of this that some do. I love 1. I love 2 even more. 3 we're about to rewatch for Patreon, so I'll get back to you on that. 4 is the only one I don't remember liking. I loved the reboot. I enjoyed the sequel to the reboot well enough, and then I liked the 3D one with Alexandra Daddario tremendously. Leatherface was kind of garbage, though. So overall, though, I love the unabashed scares and gore that we got from 2 on. There really wasn't much gore in the first one, just skeletons on the walls and stuff like that. That's
really
the weird
much
thing.
In 2 either.
No, there was more. There was the dude getting his head sawn off at the very beginning.
But that's really the only thing.
Well, yeah, you might be right, but whatever.
Yeah.
It sticks in my head.
3 is where they really go for the gore. And
so we'll get to that, but
I don't remember the Matthew McConaughey Zellweger version.
I don't remember it that well. I just remember hating it.
Next Generation.
Next Generation. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre is my number 8. Fuego.
Okay, so my number 8 is when horror went super meta, or at least like for a new generation, and that would be Scream. Okay. With the exception, once again, I haven't watched the Scream television series, and I know some people. I tried the pilot and I hated it. You watched it through and said that you found some merit in it, but for me, as far as the 4 feature films, the only one that's not good is the third one, and even the third one has the funny, holy crap, is that Connie Chung or whatever, where you got the Jay and Silent Bob cameo because they're on the film set and whatnot. I think just not having Kevin Williamson writing that third entry was what really made it just nowhere near the quality. Aaron Kruger wrote it, if I remember correctly, but Wes directed all of them. It makes me sad, especially with Wes's passing, that the 5th film that he was working on with Williamson at about the time that he passed away, we're never going to get to see, because I thought the commentary on the 4th one, with all of its stuff about reboots and how Hollywood was so big on the remake reboot train at the time, it made super amounts of sense, and I just love the commentary. And the second one is my favorite in the series because so many sequels are my favorites in these different film series, whether it's Texas 2 like you just talked about, whether it's Aliens, whether it's Terminator 2. Sequels often they double down and they make things bigger and crazier, and I love the 4th film. I mean, hey, this is a series that really got me in tune to horror when I was in a very formative state, when I was like 5th, 6th grade, and I was first discovering a lot of this stuff. So,
all right, so I'm gonna piggyback on that because Scream was my next one, or my number 7. So I like the Scream series for all the same reasons. Wes Craven's creation that is meta. It started a movement in horror cinema, so it cannot be discounted. So that's my number 7 as well, or my number 7. So your number 7.
So now jumping into my number 7, it's a series that, while maybe the characters became more paper thin as the series went on, this is really one of those, much like Saw, that's all about the kills at the end of the day. And I love the Final Destination franchise. And really, for my money, the only weak entry in it is the 4th one, the Final Destination. And yet that still had good kills in it, but the second might be the best of the bunch. The fact that they made the big set piece at the beginning way crazier. I am still, anytime there is a bunch of logs in some huge, 18 wheel whatever thing where they have the bear back and stuff, and there's wood being hauled, I think of that nasty scene at the very end of it, and just the balls of the first film to be playing John Denver during a scene where a woman who survived a plane crash is about to get killed, and just the elaborateness of all of the kills in the series. And I'm very stoked that they are about to be rebooting it, but I do hear it's a soft reboot. The 5th one just pulled everything full circle, like Wheel of Ka wise, just so perfectly, with being back on the plane from the very beginning of the first film. I love the Final Destination series, and they're very well put together, and they do not shy away from just being nasty with their kills.
And piggybacking once again, because that's my number 6, is Final Destination as well. So, I'm guessing you're going to take away a lot of my oomph during the top here.
I'm sorry, man.
So, I like that series because of the gore, because of the storytelling, and because it is just, how's it going to happen? It's tense because it's going to happen, it's just how. And the results, the payoff for each one is a good gore set piece. So for a gore fan like me, that is obviously perfect. So that's my number 6. Go ahead with your number 6.
I'm sorry. Well, and it's an enemy that you can't really defeat. You can evade,
right? But
it's not like a physical slasher or creature or something like that. I mean, that's one thing that makes it so infinitely scary to me. So my number 6 is, I feel like I'm just going to switch these two around. Number 6 is Predator. And Predator for me is much more on the science fiction side of things, but the fact that it is a big killer creature, albeit of the more sophisticated variety, because it is a trained hunter / killer that is really just going after some of the most well-trained, soldiers and killers in their own right. And this is once again, like I said, with the Terminator stuff, where a particular character was endeared to me so much more through not just film, but with crossover stuff. Like Batman Predator is still one of the best crossover comics I have ever read. It's fantastic. Great artwork by Arthur Gunther, what's his name? The guy that I bought the print from?
Sweetum.
Sorry. Man. Okay. Arthur Sweetum. He did amazing artwork for the third and the final issue of this, but I mean, whether it's the second film with Danny Glover, whether it's the original one that has, I mean, a couple former governors in Jesse Ventura and obviously Arnie. I mean, you've got Apollo Creed in there. That film is fantastic. It's probably the most broed out action sci-fi horror movie I have ever seen. Really, the only weak entry in the series for me is number 4, because I really like Predators with Adrian Brody and Lawrence Fishburne, and that cast is really good as well. So I love the Predator. I just love melding of science fiction and horror, as you guys would probably see from some of my picks here. So there you go.
All right, so my number 5 then is going to be Jaws. The Jaws series is going to go here just because I don't have all of the hang-ups that a lot of people do about Jaws 3 and Jaws 4. I love Jaws 1 and 2, obviously, with Roy Scheider. Those are fantastic, but I like the camp value of both 3 and 4. The Sea World of 1 is I think, a little bit worse than 4, in my opinion. That might get some dander up, but I think it's a little bit tougher to sit through because, I mean, the last shot when the shark is coming at the window to break it, it's not even flicking its tail. It's just gliding like a missile. It had so much silliness. But I do still like it at parts because the part where it eats the photographer that's trying to blow it up, and that's how they actually blow it up at the end, is because his arm is still there holding the grenade at the end. Like, I like the gore involved in that, and the idea of being eaten is totally frightening, and it all began with Jaws 2, because Jaws 2 was the first horror movie I ever remember experiencing and remembering when I was very, very young, when my parents were watching it in their room. So the Jaws series holds a special place in my heart, so it makes number 5.
So my number 5 is going to be none other than the Evil Dead series, which was explored, in my estimation, in a good way in a television series. I still have not finished the 3rd season of Ash vs. Evil Dead, and I will admit that I felt like the novelty was wearing off a little bit by the back half of the 2nd season. It was doing a lot of the same beats and, things from season 1, but Army of Darkness is probably in my top 5 horror comedy films of all time. Evil Dead 2 is great as well. I even like the remake, which is technically within the same universe because we get the Bruce cameo in the post-credits at the very, very end, even though that movie is, like, vicious. Really, really vicious work by, Fetty and stuff. But hopefully we will get to see something further explored, because Bruce has said that even though he is, hung up the chainsaw, there are still further entries that him and Sam are working on from the production side of things. And, I mean, Deadites, Give Me Some Sugar Baby, eternally quotable, nasty, gory, well-produced and put together. And there is still hope for Bruce in video games, which is really exciting. So that's my number 5.
All right. So my next one, I'm going to admit, might be a slight bit of a cheat. Because this, to me, is sort of an all-encompassing representation of recent horror that I like. And so I'm going to say the Conjuring verse. Because that includes Conjuring 1 and 2, Annabelle 1, 2, and 3, The Nun, and the upcoming Crooked Man.
And even The Curse of La Llorona.
And The Curse of La Llorona, technically, right? So I'm cheating a little bit there because I get like 6 movies.
Well, I mean, I was going to mention Prometheus with the Alien movies. So
okay, so fair enough. So, I mean, but that's a direct thing by the actual originator and stuff. This, I'm cheating a little bit, but it's okay. Because the Conjuring movies specifically, I absolutely adore. They're fantastic. Both ghost and demon movies. Like, it's kind of a mixture of the both, and I liked the chutzpah and the fact that obviously James Wan knocked it out of the park with The Conjuring 1 and 2, and he's not doing any of the other stuff, but Annabelle Creation was really good. The third Annabelle looks more like a third Conjuring movie, so I am on board for all of this, and I think the good work that they've done as far as being able to repeatedly scare me, not every time, but a good amount of the time, I think that sends them up towards the top because, again, James Wan. I had to reward James Wan, and I'm not doing it for Saw. Because that's not the right series to reward.
Yeah, this is the James Wan verse, and it has taken on a life of its own, even though he has stepped away from the franchise and he's only on the production side now. I mean, yeah. more power to the guy, man. So for my number 4, this would probably go ahead of my number 3, if not for the nostalgia factor of my number 3. But I'm gonna go for 4, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy, for me, of the iconic slashers of the 1980s, and I guess, Leatherface was technically in the 70s, but people lump him in with that conversation and stuff. And yeah, technically, I guess, also Michael Myers originated in the 70s, but the ones that were popularized so much in that particular decade. Freddy, for me, is the scariest. He has the most intriguing personality. He has some of the best kills. That's one of the things that really just brings down Jason and even Leatherface and Michael Myers to me. 4 is probably my favorite entry because that's my favorite kill, and you have to watch 3 and 4 together because they bookend each other so well. They're directly connected. A lot of the same characters. Freddy's Dead, meh, not so very good. But New Nightmare really breathed new life into the franchise, and I love the crossover with Jason. So Robert Englund made the character iconic, and there are some redeeming merits to the remake. But I just really, really hope that with the fact that Halloween 2018 did so very well, and they're relaunching Chucky, all these viable properties that were popularized in the 80s, maybe, just maybe, after that Goldberg's cameo, we can get Robert to do one more. That would be dope.
Maybe. My number 3 is going to be the Jurassic Park series. I am giving this. This is 5 movies at this point.
Yeah.
And
upcoming animated series too.
Yeah, and an upcoming CG animated series. So this is a nostalgia pick. I've always loved these movies. I just remain a kid at heart. I loved dinosaurs and sharks growing up. And so, Meg, I'm not as in love with as the Jurassic Park series, but it was still cool to see. The Jurassic Park series continues to wow me as a dinosaur fan, and I just get lost in the world. I get lost in the action. Yeah, that's true. I have fun. The last one I was not very entertained by because they made some really odd choices, but still the horror fan in me dug the last part with the big, not Indominus Rex, the Velocirex, whatever the hell it was.
Velociraptor.
Yeah. I thought that was at least entertaining. If it didn't make any sense, it was still entertaining. So I love the series. I love seeing dinos brought to life, and so it maintains a very high spot on my list.
Nice. Well, a lot of people are going to be surprised at how high of a spot on the list that this third film series gets, but that's Puppet Master. And this is one of those diminishing returns in recent entries because the first 5 movies I love, and the last 5 or 6 movies have really just genuinely pissed me off. So they're riding on the just momentum.
Including the remake? I thought the remake was great.
Okay, remake was good, but Full Moon had nothing to do with that,
right.
Which is the one thing to keep in mind. They're still making their Axis trilogy, which... so very bad, and I can't forgive stuff like Retro Puppet Master and Curse of the Puppet Master and Puppet Master. I don't know. There was one that they did that was just a collection of kills and just reincorporated footage, and I was just like, what the hell happened here? Because through the first 3 entries, especially up until we get to Nazi Germany and the third one, and the puppets turn good and they start killing bad people instead of good people. Puppet Master 2, for my money, is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. They added Torch, they expanded upon the mythology, and they made Toulon Evil. It's a terrific movie. It's easily the best in the franchise, although it does go neck and neck in some ways with The Littlest Reich. But I own all of these little dolls. I love the puppets, and I love the unique design of all of them. They were very... very much easily marketable for a young child like me who was first getting into horror, and I was like 12, 13 years old, and I see somebody with a hook and a knife for hands and then a drill for a head, and I was just all about it. I loved it, and I still love this franchise, and so it gets those bonus points because of the nostalgia factor like you were mentioning.
All right.
Yeah.
So number 2 is going to be Child's Play for me. I love the Child's Play series, and if you put 2 and 2 together, that means that Friday the 13th and Halloween are not on my list anywhere in my favorite franchises, because they're not. Yeah. They're not. So Child's Play is definitely one of mine. It's one of the earliest horror movies I saw in the theater was Child's Play 3. I did a whole review of it on Confused Reviews channel with Luke over there, and that is I really enjoyed doing that because I love these movies. We are planning to do commentaries of them as well as reviews. I don't know if we'll get all the commentaries done before the reboot comes out, but we will get the reviews out. I love Chucky. I mean, he's one of the best horror villains up there with Freddy, in my opinion, because he has personality. I love evil characters with personality, and that's Chucky in spades. So the Child's Play movies, they went off the rails a little bit in the middle there. Seed is just awful. I liked Curse. I thought Cult went off the rails a little bit again. I'm super excited about the reboot. Not as excited about the TV series, but we'll see what happens. Nonetheless, Child's Play is my number two favorite horror franchise. So
awesome.
Fuego.
Awesome. So my number 2 is once again back into the realm of science fiction and horror being melded together. Started out so iconically exactly 40 years ago this year with the 1979. That's right, Mr. Ridley Scott doing the original Alien movie. But the first one that I ever saw actually was the James Cameron film, where it made it more of an action film than a full-on horror film. And shortly thereafter was when they started expanding once again into the Dark Horse comic verse. Mark Verheiden wrote a couple very good miniseries that were direct sequels to the second film before 3 came in and mucked everything up with the timeline and went crazy with it. I find appreciation for Resurrection. I don't like either of the AVP movies very much, but I love Prometheus. I love just the expanding of that universe with the engineers and everything that they were responsible for putting into place, although I really was not a fan of Covenant. I had some major problems with it, but we are apparently, even under the new Disney Reich, going to see this third and final film in the Ridley Scott prequel
Did you say
trilogy.
Disney Reich?
Disney Reich, I did. Yes, that's what it feels like at this point.
That's bad.
They own my childhood, man. They really
but,
do. But maybe that's
Reich instigate, or puts
maybe
it
it's
in mind
because I was
something
just
else.
talking about Puppet Master.
Maybe so. Okay.
And the Littlest Reich. But yes, I love the Xenomorphs. I love the Weyland-Yutani and the corrupt corporation aspect to it. And those Dark Horse comics that expand upon everything you can imagine and then some are fantastic. So, believe it or not, it's not my number 1, but that is coming in just a moment.
Gotcha. All right, so my number 1 is one Fuego mentioned already, of course, because he had to take 3 of my entries and say them early.
Sorry.
My number 1 is Nightmare on Elm Street, because this is one of the series that absolutely made me fall in love with horror. It wasn't one of my first experiences, but once I did see Freddy, I absolutely loved it. I mean, Dream Warriors is one of my top horror movies of all time. I actually love 3, 4, and 5. I like The Dream Child as well. It gets a little silly, a little less Freddy. And I don't mind Freddy's Dead as much as everyone, specifically Cody Leach, does. I don't have that much of a problem with it, but the remake I had some issues with, although I really loved the micronap idea that they introduced. So I have my pluses and minuses there, but overall, Freddy has always been my absolute favorite villain to watch. He has personality. He's not a silent stalker. He can be funny at times. He can be super scary at times. He can be literally anything in your dream whenever he wants to. You know, if you're trying to run away and you grab a stair banister, he could be a snake that is the stair banister. You know, like there's just like, I guess that was in Beetlejuice, but nonetheless, Freddy could do it. Because he does become a snake in 3, just not that way. But I love Freddy, and I always will. And the Nightmare on Elm Street series is the one thing that I wish they would revive, like they've been reviving all these others. But I'm going to do my part to help with that in the relatively near future. Hint, hint.
There you go. So my number 1 might come as a surprise to a few people, but yeah, for the sheer fact that it's a lesser known one, and yet it's one that I always try to tell people about. It's the Phantasm series. I really, absolutely, yeah, I really absolutely. There is something about just the complexity of everything that the Tall Man does, the fact that he's an interdimensional traveler, the fact that, I mean, there's so much that happens to his victims, and the fact that he takes their brains out of their corpses and puts them into these floating orbs with all these little blades and craziness to them, and then he takes the remaining shell and crushes it down to these little Ewok-looking dudes, and they're these little minions of sorts. But, I mean, just the fact that he is practically ageless, the fact that Angus Scrimm epitomized the role so awesomely, the fact that I love Reggie Bannister in that role of, obviously, Mike and, Bill and the brother and stuff like that, Mr. Thornbury, they do decent enough jobs, but the dreamy essence of this series, which is really especially apparent in 1 and 4, 5, once again, it's like, every favorite series of mine, they always end up making an entry that pisses me off and kind of sours things a little bit for me. And Ravager is the only one that was not directed by Don Coscarelli, and I felt like it showed. It was originally a series of vignettes and small little shorts that they decided to hodgepodge together and Frankenstein into a movie, with somebody else having directed all those segments. And as I was talking about when I was tweeting with Cody and Lee the other day after they put up their reviews, I was like, yeah, I don't really feel like there's a fifth entry to the Phantasm series. And Cody's like, yeah, me neither. It ended after Ravager for me. So it's almost like the Indiana Jones factor. So yeah, it's a weird, just spooky, spacey, trippy series. And I just love the unique, just weird quirkiness to it, especially. So that's what sets it apart as my number one. And Phantasm 2 is my favorite of the series. So.
All right, so there you go, guys. That is our top 13 favorite horror franchises. Once again, these are our favorite. These aren't the ones that we think are the best and most well done overall franchises. These are just the ones that we like the most. So if you guys have a top 13, or if you just have a top 3 or 5 or whatever you want to let us know, put them in the comments down below. I'm curious. We wanted to do all horror franchises. I know some people do different kinds of ranking videos, so this is ours. We're actually going to be doing a separate ranking video that is going to be all of our how we actually feel they rank in a tier list. We're going to be doing a tier list ranking, so that way we don't have to put them above each other necessarily in a given order. We can just say we think this is an S class, this is an A, this is a B, a C, a D, so on and so forth. So we are going to be putting that together in the near future. But until then, if you guys enjoyed the video, click that like button. We greatly appreciate it if you do so. It helps the channel out a great deal. If you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, or reviews or trailer reactions, anything like that that we do on a regular basis. Thank you very much to our patrons for supporting the channel. The link is in the description box. If you want to become one of them, you can actually tell us content to create for the channel.
Tell us what to do.
Until next time, though, I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias, I've been Jaime Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.